Avoid this mistake if you want to become truly influential. We've all been taught that being loud, always present and constantly engaging is the key to making an impact. But what if I told you that real influence comes from doing the exact opposite? In this video, we're going to unravel the truth behind influence, starting with 3 powerful strategies that many people overlook. Have you ever wondered why some people can walk into a room and command attention without saying a word? Or why certain individuals seem to have a magnetic pull, making others want to listen, follow, and trust them? It's not about being the loudest or most available. It's about mastering subtlety, knowing when to engage, when to hold back, and how to cultivate an air of mystery that draws people in. If you want to elevate your influence, you need to embrace 3 crucial techniques: cultivating an air of mystery, leveraging strategic silence, and mastering the art of storytelling. These aren't just theories, they are proven tactics that can shift the way people perceive you and increase your impact in ways you never thought possible. Let's dive in and discover how you can begin using these powerful tools today to transform the way you influence those around you. Number 1. Cultivate an air of mystery. The power of intrigue and attraction. Imagine this. You walk into a room and everyone notices you, but not because you're loud or trying to capture their attention. It's something else. An unspoken energy that draws eyes and sparks curiosity. Think back to moments in your life when someone captivated you without even saying a word. Maybe it was the quiet confidence of a coworker, or perhaps a stranger on the subway who seemed lost in thought yet so composed. There's something powerful about mystery, isn't there? When you cultivate an air of mystery, you don't have to shout to be heard. There's something in your silence, in the way you hold yourself, that speaks louder than words. It's an approach that can evoke happiness initially, the joy of being seen without effort, of knowing that your presence alone can captivate. But there's more to it than that. This sense of intrigue and attraction goes deeper. At its core, the art of mystery is rooted in self-awareness. You're not hiding who you are, you're simply choosing not to reveal everything at once. People are drawn to what they can't fully understand. Think about it. When you leave a little to the imagination, you give others room to wonder, to ask questions, to invest in learning more about you. This is the heart of attraction, giving just enough to be interesting but never too much to lose that sense of enigma. Nostalgically, consider the allure of classic movie stars like Audrey Hepburn or Cary Grant. Their charm wasn't in being overly transparent, it was in their subtlety, the quiet confidence they carried that made you want to know more. They represented an era when less was more, when people took time to unravel the layers of someone's personality rather than being handed everything at once. And even today, we find ourselves drawn to that same quality in people who know the value of restraint. This idea leaves us curious. How can we, in a world that constantly demands we share everything, cultivate an air of mystery? How can we strike the balance between being authentic and maintaining that magnetic pull? The key is to master your self-expression, not in a way that shuts people out, but in a way that invites them in without laying everything bare. It's about leaving space for curiosity, allowing others to fill in the gaps themselves. Number 2, use the power of strategic silence, influence without speaking. There's a certain comfort in silence. Think about moments when you've been in a conversation, and instead of rushing to fill the air with words, you simply paused. You listened, you absorbed, and in that silence something powerful happened. You gained control. The ability to influence without speaking is a skill that, when used strategically, can change the dynamics of any interaction. Imagine a time when someone's silence made you pause and reflect. Maybe it was a mentor who didn't give immediate advice, allowing you to discover the answer on your own. Or perhaps it was a friend who listened intently, their silence offering more support than words ever could. Strategic silence creates space for thought, for emotion, and for deeper understanding. At first, this silence may bring a sense of happiness, a feeling of being truly heard, but beneath the surface, it's a calculated move. In the core of communication, silence is often more powerful than words. In a culture that values quick responses and constant communication, being silent can make you stand out. When you're quiet, people listen more carefully to what you do eventually say because they know it will matter. Strategic silence gives you the upper hand in conversations, making you appear thoughtful, composed, and in control. This tactic isn't about manipulation, it's about harnessing the natural ebb and flow of communication to your advantage. There's a nostalgic beauty in silence as well. Think of old-school negotiations, where pauses were intentional. Conversations weren't rushed, they unfolded with patience. Great leaders of the past understood that sometimes the most profound statements are made by saying nothing at all. We remember these moments because they were pregnant with meaning, the silence speaking volumes more than hurried words ever could. It leaves you curious, doesn't it? How can silence become a tool for influence in your life? What happens when you resist the urge to fill every moment with sound and instead let silence linger? It's in these pauses, in these moments of quiet, that you gain true power. Whether in personal relationships or professional settings, strategic silence can make all the difference in how you're perceived and how your message is received. Number 3, master persuasive storytelling. Shaping minds through narrative. Everyone loves a good story. Think about the last time you sat around with friends or family, listening as someone shared a captivating tale. There's something universal about storytelling. It's ingrained in our human nature. From the time we're children, we learn through stories, and that connection never really goes away. There's a joy, a happiness, in both telling and hearing a well-crafted narrative. But storytelling is more than just entertainment. It's one of the most powerful tools for persuasion. When you master the art of storytelling, you don't just relay information. You shape the way others think, feel, and ultimately how they act. A good story creates emotional investment, and once you've captured someone's emotions, you've gained influence over their thoughts and decisions. This is the core content of persuasive storytelling. It's about more than just telling people what to do or think. It's about leading them to those conclusions through a carefully crafted narrative. Nostalgically, storytelling takes us back to ancient traditions, when people gathered around fires to pass down wisdom, lessons, and values. Those stories weren't just for entertainment. They shaped cultures, built communities, and taught individuals how to navigate the world. Even today, the most successful leaders, brands, and movements rely on storytelling to connect with their audiences on a deeper level. Think of figures like Martin Luther King Jr., whose speeches wove personal narrative with larger ideals, or modern-day influencers who build entire communities around the stories they tell. And now, doesn't it make you curious? How can you use storytelling in your life to persuade and influence others? It's not just about what you say, but how you say it. Can you take a mundane event and turn it into a compelling narrative that pulls at the heartstrings? Can you weave your own experiences into a story that resonates with the universal human condition? The ability to do so is more than a skill. It's a superpower, one that can change minds and shape futures. Through storytelling, you have the ability to leave a lasting impact on those who listen. Number 4, apply the principle of reciprocity, building bonds through genuine giving. Picture this: you do something kind for someone without expecting anything in return, and to your surprise, they go out of their way to do something for you. That warm feeling of connection fills you up, and it's a reminder of how good it feels to give. There's a happiness in giving, isn't there? We've all felt it, the joy of brightening someone's day or helping a friend in need. But there's more to this than just kindness. There's a principle at work here that can transform your relationships and influence. The principle of reciprocity is simple. When you give, others feel a natural urge to give back. At its core, it's about creating a cycle of goodwill that builds trust and strengthens bonds. This isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding human nature. People feel a subconscious need to return favors because it makes relationships feel balanced and fair. Whether it's a small gesture, a thoughtful gift, or an act of service, giving opens the door to deeper connection and influence. Reflect for a moment on a time when someone gave you something unexpectedly, perhaps a favor, a piece of advice, or even just a kind word. How did that make you feel? There's something almost magical about the way giving fosters connection. Nostalgically, think back to old communities where neighbors helped one another, not because they expected something in return, but because it was the right thing to do. That sense of mutual support created strong, resilient bonds that stood the test of time. Reciprocity wasn't just an exchange, it was the foundation of meaningful relationships. And here's where the curiosity begins to grow. How can you apply the principle of reciprocity in your daily life to build stronger relationships? It's not about giving with the expectation of getting something back immediately, but rather about planting seeds of goodwill that grow into lasting connections. What happens when you start to give freely, without keeping score? The results may surprise you. In a world where everyone seems to want something, becoming someone who gives genuinely can set you apart, opening doors and deepening relationships in unexpected ways. Number 5, prioritize yourself. Command respect by valuing your own worth. Imagine how many times you've bent over backward to please others, putting their needs ahead of your own, only to find yourself exhausted and unappreciated. It's a cycle many of us fall into, believing that self-sacrifice is the only way to show kindness or build relationships. But the truth is, there's power in prioritizing yourself. Happiness, at first, may seem to come from being generous with your time and energy, but there's a deeper satisfaction that comes from knowing your own worth. When you value yourself, others will naturally begin to value you too. It's about commanding respect by showing the world that you respect yourself. This isn't selfishness, it's self-respect. It means setting boundaries, saying no when necessary, and taking care of your own needs so that you have the energy and capacity to show up for others in a meaningful way. Prioritizing yourself is the foundation of healthy relationships, both personal and professional. People are drawn to those who have a strong sense of self-worth because it signals confidence and security. Think back to someone in your life who always seemed to have their priorities straight, someone who didn't shy away from taking care of themselves, yet was still generous and kind. Maybe it was a mentor, a family member, or a friend. What stood out to you was their ability to balance giving to others with giving to themselves. Nostalgically, we can recall times in history when leaders and great thinkers, from Marcus Aurelius to Eleanor Roosevelt, exemplified the strength of knowing their value. They understood that to be of service to others, they first had to be in alignment with their own needs and goals. This makes you curious, doesn't it? How can you begin to prioritize yourself in a way that strengthens your relationships rather than strains them? What happens when you set boundaries, not as walls to keep people out, but as a way to ensure that you can give from a place of abundance rather than depletion? When you value yourself, you teach others to value you too. The more you invest in your own well-being, the more you'll have to offer the world, and the more respect you'll command without ever having to demand it. Number 6, genuinely listen. The quiet strength that builds trust. There's something deeply satisfying about being truly heard. Think back to the last time someone really listened to you, not just hearing the words you were saying, but truly understanding your emotions, your concerns, your hopes. That moment probably made you feel seen and valued. bringing a quiet happiness, the kind that comes from genuine human connection. Listening is a skill that's often overlooked in a world full of noise, but its power cannot be understated. When you genuinely listen to someone, you build trust in a way that words alone cannot. People feel respected, valued, and understood, and that fosters deep connections. Listening isn't just about waiting for your turn to speak, it's about being present in the moment, absorbing what the other person is saying without judgment or interruption. It's a quiet strength that can transform relationships and influence others. Through listening, you become someone people trust, someone they turn to for support, advice, and connection. Nostalgically, think of the way conversations used to unfold, before the distractions of modern life, before smartphones and social media. People would sit down and talk, really talk, with pauses and silences that weren't awkward, but rather filled with reflection and meaning. It was during these moments of genuine listening that true understanding and connection were built. Listening wasn't rushed or superficial, it was a valued part of communication. Those who mastered the art of listening were often the ones who became trusted advisors, confidants, and leaders. This leaves you wondering, how can you practice genuine listening in a way that transforms your relationships? What happens when you stop trying to formulate the perfect response and simply focus on what the other person is saying? The curiosity lies in discovering how much influence you can gain, not by speaking, but by listening. In a world that's constantly shouting for attention, becoming a person who truly listens is a rare and valuable trait. The more you listen, the more you understand, and the more trust you build. And with trust comes influence in the most authentic and lasting way possible. Number 7, create a sense of scarcity. Elevate your value through rarity. Imagine the thrill of owning something rare, something not everyone has. Whether it's a limited edition product or a rare experience, there's a special kind of happiness in knowing that what you have is unique. We're naturally drawn to things that are scarce because rarity amplifies value. Now, think about how this principle applies not just to material possessions, but to your own presence, time, and energy. When you make yourself less available, more selective with your time, you create an aura of exclusivity that people can't help but be drawn to. Scarcity, when used wisely, can elevate your value in the eyes of others. It's not about playing hard to get or withholding affection. It's about recognizing the power of being intentional with where and how you invest your energy. When you're constantly available, people may begin to take you for granted, assuming your time and attention are unlimited. But when you practice selectivity, making yourself less accessible, you enhance your desirability and command respect. By creating a sense of scarcity around your presence, you become someone whose time and attention are seen as valuable, not to be taken lightly. Think back to a time when someone in your life, perhaps a mentor or a friend, was deliberate in how they spent their time with you. When they gave you their attention, it felt special because you knew they didn't offer it to just anyone. This is the nostalgic power of scarcity, the sense that what is rare is more cherished. In the past, royalty, great leaders, and influencers have understood this well. They didn't flood the market with their presence, but instead made their appearances rare and meaningful, creating a sense of mystique and value. Now, this naturally sparks curiosity. How can you begin to apply the principle of scarcity in your own life to elevate your relationships and influence? What happens when you become more deliberate with how you share your time and energy, focusing only on what truly matters? The world begins to see you differently, your value increases, and people start to appreciate the moments you give. Scarcity doesn't mean isolation, it means creating a sense of value that others will respect and admire. Number 8, acquire mastery over emotions, influence through emotional stability. Close your eyes and think about the last time someone's calmness in the face of chaos helped you feel more at ease. There's a unique power in emotional stability, in maintaining a steady, unshaken presence when the world around you is spinning out of control. This kind of mastery over emotions creates a sense of happiness and confidence, both in yourself and in those who are around you. It's comforting to know that no matter what happens, you can control your reactions and influence the emotional tone of any situation. Mastering your emotions is one of the greatest forms of influence you can develop. When you're in control of your emotional responses, you're not easily swayed by external circumstances or the emotions of others. This emotional stability not only benefits you, but it also influences those around you. People are drawn to individuals who are calm under pressure, who don't let their emotions get the best of them. Your ability to stay composed in challenging situations communicates strength, reliability, and wisdom, which naturally elevates your standing in any group. Nostalgically, think about the great leaders throughout history who embodied emotional mastery. Figures like Nelson Mandela, who, despite facing immense adversity, remained composed, guiding his people with unwavering emotional strength. This kind of mastery has always been admired because it's rare and deeply impactful. It reminds us of the wisdom of Stoic philosophy, how people like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus taught that true power comes from within, from mastering one's own mind and emotions. They understood that external events are beyond our control, but our reactions to them are entirely within our power. This begs the question, how can you begin to master your own emotions to influence others positively? What would your life look like if you could remain calm, centered, and composed, no matter what challenges arise? Emotional mastery is not about suppressing your feelings, but about understanding and controlling your responses. It's about becoming a beacon of calm in a world full of chaos, a person others look to for stability. As you cultivate this inner strength, you'll find that your influence grows naturally as others seek the same emotional peace that you radiate. Number 9, leverage timing and presence. Amplify your impact with calculated engagement. Think about the power of perfect timing, the joy of arriving at the right moment, of saying just the right thing at the exact right time. There's a deep sense of satisfaction when your actions or words hit the mark in a way that creates a lasting impact. Timing, when combined with presence, can elevate your influence to new heights. Happiness in this context comes from knowing that your presence and your words hold weight, not because you're always present, but because you've mastered the art of being present at the most crucial times. Influence isn't just about being loud or constantly in the spotlight. It's about knowing when to engage and when to step back. Presence is about more than just physical appearance. It's about the energy you bring into a room, the way you make people feel when you're there. Combine that presence with the power of well-timed actions, and you can create a lasting impact. Whether it's offering advice at the perfect moment, making a crucial decision at the right time, or simply being there when someone needs support, your influence grows when your engagement is intentional and well-timed. Look back nostalgically at key moments in your life when someone showed up just when you needed them most. Perhaps it was a mentor who offered guidance at a pivotal point, or a friend who reached out at just the right time. Those moments stand out because they weren't random, they were perfectly timed. Throughout history, the greatest leaders and influencers have understood the power of timing, from politicians who knew when to speak up to athletes who made their mark in the final moments of a game. Timing, combined with presence, has always been a key to lasting influence. This leaves you with a sense of curiosity. How can you begin to leverage timing and presence to amplify your impact in your own life? What happens when you become more intentional with your actions, engaging only when it truly matters and stepping back when it doesn't? Mastering this balance will allow you to create more meaningful connections and leave a lasting impression on those around you. Timing, when used strategically, can turn small moments into defining ones. And presence, when combined with purpose, can turn simple interactions into life-changing experiences. As we wrap up, remember that the most powerful forms of influence are often the quietest. Cultivating mystery, practicing strategic silence, and mastering storytelling are just the beginning of your journey to commanding attention and respect. These tools, when used wisely, can transform not just how others perceive you, but how you see yourself in the process. True influence isn't about constant action, it's about understanding when to act and when to step back. Drop a 100 if you've made it this far. It shows you're part of the top 0.01% who finish what they start, and that's the first step toward lasting change.